अस्सलामुअलैकुम एवरीवन, मेरा नाम उबैद है एंड वेलकम टू माय विक्ट्री स्पेक्ट्रम पॉडकास्ट। आज हमारे साथ बड़े ही वंडरफुल गेस्ट मौजूद हैं। आपने नॉर्मली बहुत सारे सीईओज की जो है पॉडकास्ट अटेंड किए होंगे जिसमें वो प्रॉफिटेबल बिजनेस के बारे में बता रहे होते हैं, लेकिन एक और लीग है लेजेंडरी सीईओज की जिन्होंने नॉन परफॉर्मिंग बिजनेस एंटिटीज को प्रॉफिटेबल कंपनीज में जो है कन्वर्ट कर दिया। आज हमारे साथ ऐसे ही गेस्ट मौजूद हैं। ही हैज सक्सेसफुली क्वालिफाइड मास्टर्स इन बिजनेस एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन फ्रॉम लाहौर यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ मैनेजमेंट साइंसेज। ही हैज सर्व्ड यूनिलीवर, Henkel and Haleeb as a chief executive officer. He also served as the president and CEO for Pakistan Institute of Corporate Governance and currently running his own management consultancy firm Ilmnet as a founder and managing director. Please welcome the finest CEO who has turned around the business as Mr. Memosh Khawaja. Assalamu alaikum Memosh sahab, kaise hain aap?
Assalamu alaikum, nice to meet you.
I'm really humbled and honored to have you on my podcast, sir.
My pleasure, my honor.
So Memosh sahab, you've joined Henkel और आपकी सीनियर मैनेजमेंट ने इंस्ट्रक्शन दी थी टू शट डाउन देयर बिजनेसेस.
Right.
So how do you transform Henkel and what challenges you faced in that particular journey actually?
So you see, like you absolutely said, the results are, business results are fundamental in driving the whole atmosphere and the culture and the team spirit. So this particular company, the Middle East company for Henkel, was underperforming for a long period, for 6 to 8 years, continuously not producing results.
Okay.
Change of at least 3 CEOs.
Three CEOs.
3 CEOs in those 6 to 8 years. A British CEO, an Egyptian CEO, and then a Belgian CEO. So 3 CEOs in a row, and for 8 years or so, and obviously trying different techniques and methods, but no results. And this was global multinational, very concerned that no result is coming through, and they had pretty much given up.
Okay.
That it's not going to work. And
It's a tough market out there, I think.
it was a very tough market, and this is what we'll exactly come to in terms of what made things happen for us. A very tough market, and they were trying to take them head on. They were trying to take competition and trying to make something work. I was part of the group, but in different functions. I was looking after certain countries, or in sales functions or marketing functions. And then they had decided that now pretty much nothing's going to work, and they had factories and everything set up, right? So they had said, okay, now we are looking at a 2 to 3 year plan where we're going to close down the business. We have to basically get a hold of our inventories and assets and basically have a quiet, clean exit from here. But they had a 2-3 year window, and they said, okay, now we need to appoint somebody to look after this closure. And I was the senior most person in the local team.
Okay.
And they had then offered me to become the CEO.
Okay.
And of course, being a CEO on one hand is very high privilege.
Yes.
But at the same time, you're walking into a trap because
It's a very challenging as well.
Because you know that you have to either close down the business or it's not going to work. But I had, before this discussion was going on, I started to think about how would I make it happen, whether I can make something happen here, or it's a lost cause. And I was quite convinced that there are ways that we can make this business turn around.
Okay. What kind of strategies you adopted, sir?
Right.
To turn around.
So, so there's something called, I'll tell you the landscape.
Okay.
So this basically the Middle East market, which is where we were in terms of our fast-moving goods products, was dominated by this international American multinational.
Okay.
Procter and Gamble.
Okay.
Right.
It's a huge
giant, but also within the Middle East market, it's a giant. It's had a 60% market share of a large market. Right?
In detergents. Am I right?
In detergents. And then there was another second giant, which was a Unilever, and they also my ex company, but okay, another 20% market share. So 2 giants, 60-20, and we were operating for the last 8 years with 2 to 3% market share.
Okay.
And a 2% market share means that you are nothing. You're nowhere, especially when you're trying to break into the fold of these large giants. So the issue was that you were trying to take them on, and as I would understand it, it's the red ocean. So when you're fighting for blood, when you're trying to actually compete against these giants, it's going to be very bloody. You're going to bleed a lot. So it's a red ocean, right? So they were trying to take them head on and not succeeding, bleeding, 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 bleeding. So my thought was that, is there a way I can create a blue ocean around this market?
No one has explored that particular territory.
Where
Am I right?
nobody has gone in, where
Okay.
these giants do not exist, where there's of course a great opportunity through my portfolio or through my innovation, so that I can start to build my business through those arms and legs.
Okay.
So the blue ocean strategy is what we adopted. And I came in and I told my team, within the first 15 days or 20 days of my CEO leadership, I called my leadership team and I told them we're going to adopt a blue ocean strategy.
Okay.
And everybody was surprised and shocked and said, what do you mean? What are we going to do? So I told them, we're not going to take detergents on. We're not going to do what Unilever is doing. We're not going to do what P&G is doing. We're going to look for different avenues where these guys don't exist. And
Okay.
we're going to create new products and new
Product line.
new product lines.
Okay.
Where there's of course a demand. You just don't create products for the sake of them. So the blue ocean strategy, and of course with a lot of study from our headquarters in Germany, where we had some R&D available. So we said we're going to develop some products with their R&D, study the local market and see what opportunities exist here, and launch completely new products.
Okay.
And these were also detergents, but they were not like for like. They were not exactly copies of what the other competitors had. And we launched those products.
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
Can you please elaborate? What is the product line? What kind of products you launched, sir?
So the first big success that we got was this fantastic idea. As you are aware that back in those days, every 50% of the population is women, right?
Yes.
And every woman in Saudi Arabia was required to wear a black abaya,
Yes.
a black garment, silky garment, which they have to wear when they step outside the house. And there was no specific detergent which was catering to the needs of that particular
The
garment.
fabric of abaya.
The fabric of abaya, because everything else was cotton.
Okay.
Right? Because
Yeah.
men wear cotton, everybody else is wearing
Yeah.
cotton. You wear your cotton, out, in and out. But for that silky garment, there was no washing, and the women were actually using those rough detergents, powder detergents,
To clean up.
to clean up those abayas,
Yeah.
and they were getting roughed up. There was a technology available in Europe. We had the technology where we had, because they also wear silky shirts a lot in Europe.
Yeah.
So they had a technology to take care of silky garments.
Okay.
So we said, can we not apply that technology, bring it here and use it for these
Abayas.
abayas?
Abaya washing.
And it was perfectly possible. So that was the technology part of it. But then the idea was, how do you appeal to these women? Will they choose a different product for their abayas? Do they even aspire? Is this an important garment for them? So there was a lot of research done, and we found out that this garment was very important. This was the only garment that they could show off with.
Okay.
When they walked out of their house, this is all that people could see.
Yeah.
So it has to look good.
Yeah.
It can't be bad looking.
Yeah.
So we appealed to that desire of looking good outside while still wearing the black abaya. And we said this detergent that we have brought to you is basically going to make it much more
How was the response,
shiny,
sir?
etc. So it was a phenomenal success.
Okay.
Phenomenal success. Within a year or 2 years, the population took it, with open arms. So much so that the product got exported out, not just in Saudi Arabia, but it went all over to all those countries and those populations where abayas are being worn. So
Okay.
North Africa and other parts of Asia, it started to expand in a phenomenal fashion.
Excellent.
And of course, we won awards for global innovation and Henkel innovation, market innovation. It took 3 years or so for Procter & Gamble and Unilever to realize that, what is this product that has been launched by Henkel that we haven't thought about?
Okay.
And by the time they could come in, obviously you had a 3-year runway.
And you've already penetrated.
And you have created a completely new market.
Okay.
So and these multinationals, while they are strong, they're also slow to react. So
Okay.
we took advantage of that. We were nimble, and we were able to penetrate the market and not let them.
How much % you've captured of the market, sir?
Oh, we had. I think we also had 60 to 70% of the market of this abaya market. Obviously, it was a market creation opportunity.
Okay.
Which became quite big in the end. but we had the leadership, absolute leadership over there.
Excellent. You've also launched the fragrant floor cleaner as well.
Yes,
Can you please elaborate?
yes. So that was the second opportunity. So in fact, it probably came hand in hand at the same time. While this Abaya opportunity was being explored, we also said, okay, there is a second opportunity that we are not going after, and this was basically around floor cleaning habits.
Okay.
So floor cleaning was being done in that market through very traditional products again.
Okay.
There's again another ex-P&G company called Clorox.
Clorox.
So it's a giant. It's an American company, but also with strong association with Procter & Gamble. And Clorox is a bleach. So basically, the households were cleaning their floors with bleaches, or they were using some other
pungent
smelling products, and they were not happy with it. But they would say, okay, it does the job. So we said that why should they clean their floors only with a bad smelling product? Wouldn't they want, or sorry, they had the other product that they had was also this traditional antiseptic Dettol product,
yeah,
which also smells pungent,
yeah,
a brown product.
Yeah.
And we used to have that in Pakistan also for decades.
Yeah.
So there was this Clorox and there was a Dettol, and there was no proper product for floor cleaning. Again, the West had a lot of innovation around this. So we said, why don't we give them a floor cleaner that does the job, but also smells very nice. And that was the bridge we brought in. And those giants, Clorox and Reckitt & Coleman, they were dominating this floor cleaning market.
Okay.
So we came in right in the middle and we said, beautiful smelling products. Okay. Not one, but a range of 6. So it's almost like a shampoo or something, because you have range of
fragrances available
that you could choose from. And that's what they wanted, just like perfumes. They wanted to smell this way, they wanted to smell lemon, they wanted to smell strawberry, they wanted to smell, the floors would smell nice in very different ways, yeah, right? And that became a huge hit again.
Okay.
That took the market by storm. And of course, we had very nice creative advertising around it to push that idea. But the product concept itself was, I think, the basis of it. And it was again a blue ocean, because we didn't want to go in those red oceans where we were bleeding. We created a blue ocean. And again, phenomenal success, global award winner, went all over.
Global award?
Global award winner, this product was. And it still is. It's still doing, 20 years later, it's still doing phenomenally well.
Excellent.
I suspect it's also come to Pakistan. I think it's doing very well here as well.
You've also overcome major challenges at Henkel Germany head office as well. Can you please elaborate your success story, sir?
So Henkel Germany, of course, so these were operating markets, the Middle East, where you are running the show, where you're responsible for producing results, and you have resources at your hand to deliver results. So then once I had done well, I'd obviously wanted to go to the headquarters, and shine over there and really do well over there. But the dynamics are very different.
Okay.
Because when you're at the head office, you are not the only decision maker.
Okay.
You have to work through multiple other
stakeholders. Okay.
Get their alignments and approvals, and then move on something. So it was quite different, because having been a CEO for maybe 7 years prior, I was put in a situation where I could not decide on things. Okay. So you have to learn to collaborate. You have to learn to work through other people.
Not partner with them.
Partner, and not just the office employees, but it's all a partnership project, because my role in Germany was to ensure that all the countries around the world, 45 countries I was responsible for, the 45 countries performed well in collaboration with the headquarters. Because approvals have to be taken from headquarters, resources have to be drawn from there, countries face issues. So I had the experience of country management, and that's why they brought me to the headquarters in Germany, that I could relate to these people, because the Germans could not understand certain countries. The cultures were different, right? So if a German is talking to an Arab or a Pakistani or an Asian or a Korean, then they have difficulty understanding their cultures. So they said country management and culture understanding was my forte. I had worked in the Middle East with a lot of troubled countries around me, right? So my first project was that they said, okay, here is a 20-year-old problem we have.
20-year problem?
For 20 years.
And no one had resolved it?
They could not resolve the problem.
For the last 20 years?
20 years.
Okay.
And this was basically the Levant region
Okay.
Lebanon, Jordan, Syria, this area. And they said we have a partner there for the last 20 years, and we are not able to make headway with them. There's no collaboration, there's no support. We have an agreement, but the agreement we don't like, and there's no collaboration. It's a problematic business for us. So we want you to go and make a improved agreement with them so that we can start to work together. And because I understood the Arab culture, I had known those people while being in Saudi Arabia.
Their psychology.
I understood their way of working. I could talk to them; they could relate to me. So I basically said, okay, and I took 1.5 years negotiation.
One and a half year.
1.5 years of negotiation. So much so that my CEO, global CEO, said, he said, "You're taking too long to fix this. How long will you take?" And I told him, I said, "You've taken 20 years to solve this. Just bear with me for a little while. It's getting to a closure." And Alhamdulillah, in 1.5 years, we made a fantastic agreement with those partners in the Levant region, such that they were very happy and Henkel was very happy.
Okay.
Again, it was a fantastic celebration because a big problem had got resolved in this manner. So I had really those kind of issues to solve where of different nature. Then we had a similar issue in Iran. Of course, you know that doing business in Iran was not possible.
Yeah.
We had to find, and they had made huge investments in Iran, so we had to find ways to work in Iran and still be.
So Henkel is there in Iran right now?
Henkel is still there, so and doing quite well. But they had some other, legal and contractual issues and business issues. So we had to get around those. So basically, yeah, it was a completely different challenge. Not a operating challenge, but let's say more of a collaboration, legal solutions, understanding cultures. But it was a huge learning in terms of how to work in diverse cultures and diverse mindsets and get things going.
How to collaborate and partner as well.
How to collaborate and partner.
Okay.
Yeah.
After Henkel, you come down to Pakistan,
Yes.
joined Haleeb as a chief executive officer.
Yes, absolutely.
Another transformational story, right?
Another massive challenge, transformational story, yes, of course. Now, this was also a similar blue ocean, red ocean story.
Okay.
So when I studied Haleeb before coming in and I went in, I saw the same opportunity that, okay, this is also a red ocean, because you see, Haleeb was, the only difference versus Henkel was that Haleeb was a market leader in the past. Yes, it was already that 60% market share brand.
So how they lost the share?
But unfortunately, they had lost it completely over the next 15 years or 20 years. It was not about Henkel where we had to build. It was more about revival of that brand which had lost its glory. And that's a much harder proposition, right? It's not so easy. So how they lost this whole business was, of course, complacency, or let's say, I would say profit taking, short-term thinking, and some compromises on quality, relationships. The partners were very angry when I walked in. The distributors, the retailers, the consumers. You spoke to any of these stakeholders and they were extremely angry with Haleeb for the last 20 years, because they said bad rep. So much so that, of course, even the bad press had been going around. So how do you turn that around? How do you make that come about? And at the same time, they had invested heavily in a red ocean. So they had gone behind this business, which was the lower end of the market, mass market dairy products, and where there were already 8 other players. 8 other players
who are producing dairies.
The same kind of product. So I said, this is not a no-go area, because you're operating in a red ocean, fighting against 8 other players who are giants again, like Nestle
Milkbake, or Allbirds,
or Engro, or these are, and there were some others, huge giants. Okay, we were doing relatively well. Noorpur. But the amount of money that was being lost, bleeding, was crazy, because you have to spend to be competitive, right? Like I said, red ocean is all about being competitive and to bleed. And I had clearly said that, okay, we have to go for a blue ocean again here, where this whole majma of competitors is not there. We have to find our own niche. But it was difficult because, like I said, there were not many avenues available. This is dairy. This is where
Options are limited.
options are limited.
Because the product is the one.
It is
milk,
at the end of the
butter,
day, it's
cheese,
milk.
that's it.
How much can you do? So we went after some of these categories like butter, because butter was not so formalized in Pakistan. We went after some other varieties as well. We launched a mid-tier milk as well, which was basically not existing, because the lower tier was not milk, and this one where we had not succeeded.
It's a dairy whitener actually.
It's a dairy
whitener. Tea whitener.
Absolutely.
Not a milk.
It's not milk, as a court ruling had said. So we went somewhere in the middle. We said, okay, it's a affordable milk. We launched something which did very well at the end. So options were limited. We basically went in and we tried a few things. We also tried to upgrade this mega brand Haleeb, but it needed a lot more time in terms of getting out of that reputational crisis that the company had faced.
Okay.
But the strong point was that the team was, what I like about the Pakistani culture is that the teams are very focused in terms of execution excellence. If you tell them that this is how we're going to do it, then the team is usually behind in a very strong way, and they execute very well. Usually it's the leadership, it's the direction that is lacking in companies. This is what I've seen here. Execution wise, most of our people are quite good, and they execute quite well.
Okay. Yeah. Sir, you've also worked for PICG, Pakistan Institute of Corporate Governance.
Yes.
What are your major milestones as a president and the CEO over there?
So the reason why I had come in, of course, it was founding sort of organization in terms of corporate governance. But again, my approach towards looking at the outside world and seeing what's happening in the external environment, what can this organization take to transform itself? And so my thought was that there's this emerging thought process of changing governance to which is the G to ESG. So basically, it's now environmental, social, and governance.
Okay.
So ESG is the new, let's say, emerging
buzzword.
Don't call it the buzzword. It's basically the new responsibility of companies and boards to work on that. Not just governance, but ES and G. And I had specialized myself over the years in this field, and I wanted to work a lot more in this field. So luckily, I met like-minded people in the board of PICG, the chairperson, Dr. Shamshad, and her team. They were very keen, and they were already active in making this organization move faster towards ESG and take it to the market, right? Take it to the companies. So it was a perfect match. So we did a lot of work on ESG. I would say this was the main success point. We introduced several capacity building programs for the corporate world on ESG. We did several webinars, talks, and shows on creating awareness around ESG. We did conferences. We had the first ever ESG conference in Pakistan, which was a 3-day conference. And it had international speakers, it had local speakers. It was a huge success in terms of creating that awareness around ESG. And ESG is also sort of encompassing the big issue of climate change. So it falls within the E of the ESG.
Environment, yes.
The climate issue. And as you all know, that the climate issue is really massive in Pakistan now. In 5 years before, there was nobody talking about it. But now it's on the minds of everybody. And I think some contribution can be given to PICG for creating that awareness that climate change and climate issues are business issues. And businesses have to think about it. And there's still work going on in that field. And I think in the next 1 or 2 years, there'll be a transformation around ESG in Pakistan. And there'll be a lot more practice in this area as well.
Okay, excellent. Sir, what's your last question? What's your advice for the CEOs who are working for underperforming businesses, units, or working in the underperforming economies?
Right. So drawing from my experience, as you can imagine, I would say, one, we should be always studying the external environment. If you're operating in a company, don't just look at your company's parameters. Step back and look at the environment, whether it's the consumer environment or legal environment or competitive environment, you have to study that all the time, and you have to draw from
manage handle the full spectrum,
handle
oversee.
the full spectrum, assess the full spectrum, and then devise your strategy.
Okay.
Because your strategy will usually come from those nodes that you'll pick up from outside.
Okay.
If you stay within the scope of your organization, you will only find old ideas, repeated ideas, tried and tested ideas. Everything is done, this is done, that is done, now what do we do? So there's always a limitation in terms of what you can do well.
Outside of the box?
Outside the box, blue ocean, right?
Okay.
So one idea is to constantly look at that because the best, and also to look at the life cycle of your company. Of course, it's very important. So most companies fall in the trap of being in that stage where they have, we have this habit of being fast followers. If you have done well in something, then the next 20 people will want to do the same thing that you have done because, oh, he's done well, so let's follow him. Repeat. And usually by the time people walk in, this idea is already done by 10 people. And the growth opportunity is limited. So they crowd in the market in that sense. They don't realize that they're entering the market when there is already a crowd out there. So you have to study where you are at. If you are in a situation where it's saturated, it's a high growth situation, already achieved, then you have to rejuvenate the market curve and you have to come up with something completely different.
Okay.
Of course, if you are number 2 or number 1 in the herd and you're running behind it, if you're an innovator, second or third, I would say, fine, you can copy somebody and you can get there fast.
Okay.
Fast follower. But if you are not the first 3, then you're asking for trouble because then you're really going for nothing. You won't get so many returns. So I think this whole strategic aspect of market management, life cycle management is very important. And the second aspect for me is, of course, alignment. What I've seen is alignment with your board and your shareholders, and of course, alignment below with your senior team leadership. It's very important. That
with all the functional heads.
Once you've applied your brain and you've figured out what you want to do, you've got to be able to keep your board and your shareholders aligned and your team aligned to it. So you have to keep them with you on this whole thing all the time. So people management and upward, downward management is absolutely key in terms of successes. So that's because sometimes you can start running on your own and nobody's following you or nobody's with you, and then you can't really lead it this way. You have to take everybody along. So that's the second most important thing.
Okay. Thank you so much, Memosh sir. It's a wonderful discussion regarding business turnaround and business transformation. Audience, मैं उम्मीद करता हूँ आपने enjoy किया होगा the transformational success story of Mr. Memosh Khawaja about Henkel, about Haleeb Foods, the way he transformed the underperforming business entity to the profitable ones. Stay tuned for the more episodes. Thank you and Assalamu Alaikum.